Hi, everyone. I'm here today with Jenny Braxton. I'm Sheila Kumar-Hay of Ecstatic Birth. Today, we're going to be talking about igniting your feminine power. So I'm so excited about today's talk because Jenny and I have been really getting to know each other over the past year. She has taken a plunge with me in the Ecstatic Birth practitioner training, and I've really been able to witness this igniting your feminine power, like happening for her in real time. And this is not something new for Jenny. She is a community leader. She's a childbirth educator. She is has been really immersed in this conscious birthing, sacred mama. I said that backwards. Sacred birthing, conscious mama movement. She's been a leader in that, and it's really been an honor and a privilege to have you with me on this journey this past year, and to have you here with me today. Welcome, Jenny.
Oh, thank you so much, Sheila. It is truly an honor to be here with you today. And yeah, it has been quite an amazing year getting to know you and diving in with you on so many amazing things. And yeah, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to be here.
Yeah, and I think it's such an important conversation, right? Like, the feminine's rising right now. Everybody feels it. There's all kinds of different ways women are coming forward, some amazing, some not so amazing. Like, there's a lot of challenges with that. And so this idea of, like, how do we tap into our feminine power? What does it mean to ignite that in others? I was wondering if you'd be willing to share a little bit about your journey and how that's been for you.
I would love to. Definitely me igniting my feminine power has gone a lot hand in hand with me also becoming a mother. And the journey really started for me after my second was born, my daughter. She's 8 now. And at that point I had read this book, Wild Feminine by Tammy Lynn Kent, which is truly amazing. And that book was the first like plunge I took into like, oh my gosh, like, what is this feminine power, and like unpacking all this stuff that I had no idea I was even holding on to. And it's just been this amazing journey, and that I feel like I really came to it through this very like, spiritual, energetic way of like really learning about my feminine energy and learning how to tap into it. And obviously it's a continual evolution, but really drawn to it through, just like the sacred creation of birth and being a mother, and just like that very spiritual, sacred part of it. And then it was after the birth of my third child, who is now 2. And that, even though like the birth was beautiful and amazing, and like I didn't tear or have any complications, it took me a full year to physically recover from that birth, in the way that like sex was really painful for an entire year afterwards. And so it was this thing where, I'd already been doing so much work on myself and my feminine self. And so I really knew that like, okay, this is like an opportunity for me to dive in to this aspect of myself in a much deeper way. But I wasn't, I was like, it was like my third child. I had a baby. Like, I was just like, okay, I'm not quite ready for this yet, baby steps. And then I actually was first introduced to you, Sheila, through a birth summit. I forget which one it was. It was like a year ago. I think it was with Nicole Mapu. And at that point I had been supporting women in preparing for birth. And so once I heard you speak and you talking about, how our sexuality is an inherent part of birth, and how pleasure is this like extremely integral part of birth and of our life. And, at that point, from having 3 of my own children, like I totally knew that birth was a sacred, amazing thing. But as far as it being a pleasurable experience, I had always been kind of like, okay, well, yeah, maybe. It was like pleasurable in different ways, but not necessarily on the physical level for me. Like, it was intense for me. And so, but hearing you talk about how it's part of our sexuality, and how the pathways of birth and sex and all of those things are really one and the same. I mean, it was just like one of those moments of full body resonance where I'm like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. I need to know more. And so I did. I started doing your Ecstatic Birth Practitioner training course, really thinking that it was to help educate myself so that I could support my mamas better, so that I could support them in having, pleasurable, ecstatic births and just wonderful births. And little did I know that it was actually really myself needing to go on this journey. So it really being in your course, and it was this catalyst for me to go from this place of like my feminine power as this like, you know, spiritual connecting with my yoni and my womb to like reclaiming my own sexuality and the power of that piece of the feminine power. Because that was a piece that for me was missing, and you know I hadn't fully realized that. And so through everything I've been exposed to in your course and just the work I've been doing, it's just been this amazing journey of coming into my feminine power and igniting it, and like in a beautiful deep way that's been amazing.
So cool. That's so cool. And it's been really interesting listening to you because, you know, one of the things that we talk about and I talk about in general is this idea that we're constantly rebirthing ourselves, right? And there's this journey that we go on in our lives that's like a perpetual like labor. It's like contraction and expansion, contraction and expansion. And I could really feel that in the rhythm of your story. And there's so many things I want to ask you about right now, but I want to start like right at the beginning when you talked about, you know, the first thing that really brought you into your feminine power was becoming a mother. And I think that's such an important point because it really is it's this huge rite of passage when you become a mother, especially for the first time. So I was wondering if you could expand on that a little bit. Like, what is it about that journey that really gives you access to your feminine power in that way?
Yeah. Oh, well, honestly, for me, like the journey started off becoming a mother, really plunging me into, I mean, you know, when I say darkness, I don't mean like I didn't have like postpartum depression or anything like that. And, but I think it's just like one of those things, you know, it's so cliche to say, but you cannot prepare for being a mother until you actually are. And, you know, part of what fascinates me about motherhood is all of the patterns and these deep-rooted things that come up that for me at least I was so unaware of beforehand, like all of these shadowy parts of myself that I had no idea existed. Like a whole new part of me came out once I became a mother. And even though it was, you know, magical and beautiful and all those things, it was also really, really, really hard for me. And my first two children, they were born 2 years apart. And it just took me to those places where, you know, it's like the contrast of like, it took me to that place of just like, oh my gosh, like I can't do this way. Like, this is not cool. Something has to change. And so it was through that. And then, you know, like I said, opening up to that idea of the feminine energy and realizing that I had all these imbalances in myself, the imbalance of masculine energy, this constant needing to just be like having children ignited in me, this just like a low grade anxiety of not being okay, of just like being and being present and just like being in the moment. Like I was constantly like, oh my God, okay, you know, we got to be doing something. I was just like constantly like, I feel like I had these like big wide eyes, just kind of running around like, and I think, so not only that, so bringing, you know, motherhood, bringing up these deep things that we might take us a long time to find otherwise. And then honestly, just the act of giving birth. I mean, that is why I was drawn to working with birth, because it is like such an amazing experience in a woman's life. And I think that in our culture, it's so easy to just be like, okay, well, it's this kind of like this uncomfortable, painful thing that we just have to get through so we can have our babies. But honestly, the journey of like where I am today in my feminine power is like hugely through the experiences of my births, which all of them were home births. All of them were really beautiful. But in my first two births, there was like a level of trauma that I experienced in that I was like unable to really put my finger on, because, you know, they were at home, they were amazing, but it was really like the intensity of it was like traumatic on a level to me. And it wasn't until the birth of my third child that I realized why that was. And it was because in those experiences of birth, I never actually gave up control. I was still trying to control the situation. I pushed them out pretty easily, but I actually never had the urge to push because I didn't surrender to the experience. I was just like, I am done. I'm going to push these children out. And it was like really frightening to me. And then with my third child, I actually kind of tried that same thing. I forgot about the whole needing to be 10 centimeters dilated. And I was just like, hit this point where I'm just like, I am done. I am pushing this child out. And it didn't work. And so I hit this place where I just had to totally let go of control and everything. And truly for the first time, probably in the first time in my life, I truly surrendered into what was happening. And it was so amazing. And that I really, when he was born, it was like me just opening to this energy that came through me and brought him out. And it was just this most like, I think it was like, just this deep experience of feeling that feminine power of just opening and receiving for this child to like come through me. And, as soon as he was born, I was like, that was a really healing experience, even though I couldn't like put exactly my finger on why it was. But then over time, that's what I realized. It was just that needing to surrender, which I mean, we talk about is so essential in birth. And I think that is an entry point into that true feminine power, is really just like letting go and letting go of control and letting go of this like linear need to control things and have things turn out a certain way.
It's so interesting because, when we think of power, we think of like, oh, like exerting our power or exerting our will or having control, right? But really, this like feminine power, there is like an essential element of being able to access that like deep feminine power. It is surrender. Yeah, and that is actually, as you point out, it's the hardest thing of all.
Yeah.
And I think that is why motherhood, I like to say like becoming a mother is like it's the biggest personal growth journey you'll ever take in your life, because
100%.
Because you can't just control these little beings. They have their own will. They have their own, they have their own desires. They have their own presence. And so like, I can really relate to everything that you were saying, because I feel like when you come into motherhood, it comes with this sense of like, hey, I'm going to take care of this. And then you learn very quickly that that's just not how it works. And so it's an initiation into this like surrender, this co-creation, this like, I'm not this independent being taking care of another independent being, but actually we're all in this together, which is a big aspect of the feminine, right? To co-create, to do things together, not to be solitary, alone, and, strong in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. And it's true. I think that, not just birth as being a really amazing opportunity for us to learn to surrender, but like, as you said, the whole mothering journey. And that has also been such an experience for me, is just really opening up to that idea that like, we don't, even if the things we're trying to control about our children are like good things, like them eating healthy and, all these like good things for them, like I have just learned over my time that, they are really, they're not ours. Like we are here to like usher them into this life and to, teach them and protect them while they're learning and growing, but they are their own little beings. And it's really just us like protecting that sacred space so that they can unfold into who they truly are. And that is certainly a journey.
Yeah. And I think it like requires an ever deepening surrender as they grow. Yeah. And now we're like, I've got teens and tweens in my house. It's like, whoa, like it's like a whole other level of surrender.
Yes, I can imagine.
So, I want to touch back on something that you said earlier about your journey, after having your third child.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this like igniting of your, feminine power that happens as a mother, but there is a whole other level of it that you've experienced, since having your third child. And I think that you said that was in relationship to your pleasure and your sexuality and owning that. I was wondering if you could talk more about that.
Yes, I would love to. So, I mean, really that whole journey for me is deeply tied to the work that I've done and as I said, I like, had this year after birthing my child where like sex was really painful. I was kind of like, I know there's stuff to unpack here, but I'm just like not ready for this. And then being in your course and like really having that idea of focusing on our pleasure. Cause honestly for me, like, I was really brought up, as I think many, many people in this culture are, of just the idea of like, your worth is tied to your productivity. You have to constantly be like doing things. I was just constantly like running myself to this place of exhaustion and, having small children, starting a business. We live out in the country and having a farm. And I just felt it was like so many years of me just like constantly like pushing myself. And then to really be with you and like turn that into this place where I'm like actually like really focusing on my pleasure and really focusing like, well, how can I bring that pleasure into my life in those, difficult times of mothering or having to get all this stuff done, was really revolutionary for me. And when I really started focusing on that and also really focusing on my sexuality, I got to this place where I realized it was like really this like reclaiming and owning that like, oh my gosh, like feeling good and feeling pleasure is like something that I'm in control of. Like, this is not something to give to somebody else, whether that be, pleasure from my husband or just pleasure like in my life. Like, that's actually something that's within me and that is under my control to access. And just like, kind of having that awareness and being like, wow, like that's kind of amazing. I don't know. That was just like something that I had never really been introduced to me before. And I have to just like give a shout out to your course for a minute, which is like so beautiful. And the teachers and speakers that you have gathered in it is just like an amazing group of people. And it has been so expansive for me. And so, through what we've done together, through the different speakers I've been exposed to, I have been able to really like accept and love and find the beauty and pleasure in my own body in a way that I never, ever have before. Like, I uncovered so much deep stuff through this work that I have been able to release. And it has truly brought me into this place where, you were just saying like that feminine energy of surrender. Also, it's like I've really learned through you is that our feminine energy is in our pleasure, and that we don't have to be this like going out there, doing the things, like working hard to get what we want, but that like really our true feminine power is the ability to like be in our pleasure, be in what feels good, and allow the things to come to us. And that has been an amazing journey for me, because I've always been this sort of person, like, I got to go out and do it. I got to make it happen. And now just to be like, oh my gosh, I can just like make myself feel good and sit here, and the things that I want are just like coming to me.
This is so, first of all, like, well said. And I'm so honored to be a part of this journey of yours. And I just want to, like, you probably did not sign up for the Ecstatic Birth Practitioner training thinking, I want to learn to like feel into my pleasure and surrender it, right? So you came in likely for very concrete reasons of wanting to support your clients, wanting to be more productive. So how has it affected that?
Yeah, I mean, yes, 100%. I think I said earlier that like, yeah, I had this, when I first started it, it was all about how can I gain more knowledge so that I can help the women that I work with. Right. So wait, actually, sorry, will you just repeat a little bit the question of that?
Yeah, I just want what I really want to showcase in what you're saying is that like, yes, you got all of this amazing, you got this like igniting of your feminine power, but it also had really positive ramifications for the work that you're doing, both within your home, with your family, and also with your clients. So I wanted to know, like, yes, you're feeling pleasure and you're able to surrender more. And that's been like a really deep connection to your feminine power. How has that played out in terms of your work in the world?
Yes, definitely. Well, I feel like with my work, it's this constant evolution of like really understanding, kind of like my purpose and like what I'm really here to help women with. And, at first, like I said, it was just all about like birth and having a healthy, like empowering birth experience. But as I've gone through the work I have done with you, I've really, really realized that like the root of everything lies in our sexuality. Like having an amazing birth experience, being able to mother from a place of like calm and joy and presence, being able to create the work or whatever it is that we want in our life is like so important to be connected with our sexuality. And that was a piece for me that was kind of missing before. So as far as my work in the world, how this has affected it, I've gotten so much clarity into like what I'm here to do. Like I've always known that I am supposed to be helping women connect to like their feminine power and their pelvic bowl. But this has like taken it to a new level where I'm like, oh, this is the thing. Like women are pleasure starved. Women are like disconnected from this essential piece of themselves. And so just like having that clarity around where I want to go in my work has been amazing. And then, like I said, just the strengthening of my own feminine power through this connection with myself and my sexuality, I mean, is just like, it like magnetizes you. So I feel like it's just pulled in these different opportunities for myself for work, for, you know, personal growth. It's just like bringing the opportunities in. And that's why I think it's so cool, because you don't, like with your feminine power, when you're truly in it, you don't have to do anything. You know, you just like sit there and receive. And I mean, obviously there's like, you know, obviously there's still work that has to be done, but I think that learning to really connect in with your desires. And that's another thing that I've really learned from you is like, how do we tap into our pleasure? Well, we have to know what we desire and what we want. And I really started asking myself that question as like a daily practice. And it was so amazing to me, because when I first started, it was just like, I don't know what I want. Like, I don't even know. Like, I don't know what I want. And so being able to tap into desire, to follow that desire, to follow that pleasure, and it just like leads you where you're supposed to go. And it leads you to those opportunities, and it leads you to the people who need your support. And that's been truly amazing.
So awesome. I'm so excited to hear you talk about this. And what advice would you give to a woman who is supporting others in birth, or an expectant mama who wants to, you know, this piece of igniting your feminine power? It is so essential for birth. So let's start with the moms.
Yeah.
You know, if you're pregnant and you're, you know that there's this rite of passage coming up, and you know that to an extent this is a gateway to your feminine power, like how would you recommend someone even begin that journey?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's like, where do we feel pleasure? We feel it in our bodies. And so it is essential to come back into our bodies for that experience of birth, 100%. And then obviously for everything else. But so, and you know, we live in a place, in a culture where we are so often just like up in our heads, caught up in these patterns of stress and anxiety and all the things we have to do. And it takes really conscious practice to come back down into our bodies. But it is, I mean, I just can't even stress that enough for women who are preparing for birth, that we have to be able to be in our bodies. And part of that, you know, why are we disconnected from our bodies? Well, because there's a lot of not pleasure in our bodies when we come in here and be really present. Like, it's very common to be confronted with like things that are really just uncomfortable, or just to not even like know how to be in your body. And so starting that journey, however that is, you know, for a lot of whatever, you know, maybe through yoga, maybe through dance, maybe through meditation, however it is, to really like be in your body and feel your body. And you have really taught me, you know, so many amazing practices and ways of really like, just like feeling in your body, which is just like an amazing gateway, I think, for anybody. And then I would also go to say that is like so essential to look at your sexuality and to look at your relationship to yourself in that way, and to explore that and to find out where those places of shame are and those places of discomfort are. Because, you know, if you are not comfortable in that place in yourself, it's going to come out in your birth. You know, as we talk about, like when we give birth, we are birthing with our sexual body. It's the same body. Yeah. And so if there are blocks in that, they're going to affect your birth in one way or another. So I think that is just really an essential piece. And just for women to be open to that. I know it can seem like such a scary thing to like explore those things, and that, you know, we all have so much stuff around that place in our body and our sexuality. And so just to like go into it with an open mind and an open heart, and to know that only good will come of it by exploring those places. Like only good will come of it. I think is just really important.
Yeah. I mean, you highlighted probably like the most important piece of ecstatic birth prep to me, which is
Yeah.
that piece of starting to feel like what's going on in your body, right? Starting to connect to the sensations in your body. And from that place, moving towards what feels good. So if you connect to your body and you feel pain, that's your body talking to you. That's your body's wisdom. Just like if you connect to your body, you feel hunger, you feel like you have to go to the bathroom. That's your body talking to you. So pain also is your body talking to you. So I think that is, for me as well, like the most essential piece. And then for, you know, for birth workers who want to support women to prepare in this way, to help their moms access that feminine power within their body, what thoughts do you have for them?
I mean, once again, the same thing, you know, as we've really talked about, you know, the birth field is so contagious. And so the energy that a birth worker brings into the birth room is going to, like, the mom is going to feel that. Like we have so much, not power, but we can just affect the energy of a birth room so much. And so by really knowing how to tap into our own pleasure and what sustains us and nurtures us, because supporting somebody in birth, I mean, that can be an extremely, you know, it takes a lot out of you. Yeah. And so if you find yourself, like, if you're not in a good place in the birth room with somebody, then that is going to affect them, and they're going to feel that energy too, even if they don't realize it. And so I think that, you know, we talk about like holding the tone for birth and holding that energy. And so if the more good and strong and solid you can feel within yourself, and knowing how to like nourish yourself and bring pleasure back when you're starting to feel depleted, it's just going to like hold that tone for the mother, so that when because I mean, she's going to find a place in birth where she's feeling depleted and in need of nourishment. So when she hits that place, like just having that energy and that like frequency and vibration of pleasure and of feeling good is going to be so amazingly helpful for that birthing woman, and for the birth worker, you know, so that when you're done in that birth, that you are not getting depleted, that you are able to replenish yourself and feel good in yourself.
Yeah. I mean, this is why I created the Ecstatic Birth Practitioner Training. This is why, because I think that the more birth workers can come into their bodies and hold that tone for pleasure, the more you can source also like the work that you're doing for your clients from the pleasure within your body.
Yes.
Same way that you described, you know, how this past year has affected your mothering and how things can come to you. You're sourcing from your body, from your pleasure, right?
Yes.
And so the more birth workers can do that and source from that place, not only will you be supporting your clients, but you're actually going to be nourishing yourself. I know depletion is a big issue among birth workers because we have like mother syndrome, and mothers too, right? Like as moms, as these beings that love with our whole hearts, we pour our energy into our children, into our clients. Like that can be really depleting. So the more you can connect to your femininity through your sexuality, the more it'll give you energy and help you source from that place.
Yeah. And I also think like a huge piece for pregnant women and birth workers is to really look at that relationship with your body and your sexuality, and to like uncover any shame that you have around it. Because, you know, if you're a birth worker, obviously, you know, hopefully you think that birth is this amazing thing and you're all about the feminine body, but like still we can have these really like deep places of shame that we hold about our own bodies and our own sexuality. And so that's going to block us from helping the birthing woman like access, you know, we talk about like pleasure being an amazing tool in birth, but if a birth worker isn't feeling comfortable with that within their own selves, then they're not going to be able to share that with the mother. And the other thing that I wanted to say was, about just like feeling, when we were talking about women who are preparing for birth and how it's so important to feel in your body. And that is such an important step, because when we, you know, just for me in this journey, like being in my body, really feeling what I was feeling in my body, that is actually how I pinpointed that, like, oh my gosh, I still have shame around my feminine self. Like I have shame around my sexuality. Like it brought this awareness to me that like, oh my gosh, I feel shameful and bad, like touching myself, you know, and it had to be me like coming into my body and feeling those feelings for me to pinpoint that. And I think clearing shame is like the number one most important thing, because that just, once I had that awareness and was able to clear it, which isn't the first time, like it's layers, right? Like, it's not like I've never cleared shame from my feminine self before, but like I found it at this even deeper level that I didn't know. And clearing that was just like brought in this most expansive space, which was just incredible. And I also just want to say that I really, really love and appreciate what I've learned from you, and that how life really reflects the rhythm of labor, and that we have these periods of expansion and we have these periods of contraction. And right, in labor, like those contractions are our body working so that we can open more. And it's just helped me so much in my journey to understand that, like, okay, if I'm going through a place that seems really hard right now and I'm not feeling that great, like I'm in a contraction, like I'm working through something right now. And if I can stay in my body and stay present with this, I'm going to get into this place of amazing expansion. And so I've really loved like tapping into that natural rhythm of contraction and expansion. Has been so helpful.
It is, you know, and it's so well articulated that for me and for so many women, that having that flow really helps orient you. Like a lot of times we'll feel like, oh, I'm back in this place again.
Yes.
Oh, like I thought I had made so much progress. And
yes.
The way, you know, just like you articulated, it's really not, it's not really like a forward backwards thing. It's like peeling the layers of an onion. It's this constant flow. And so, you know, you release one layer of shame and you have this like expansive high pleasure. And then down the line, there might be another layer. And that's not surprising given the culture that we live in, right? I mean,
Totally.
we live in a culture, most of us are saturated in all kinds of negative messages about our bodies, about our sexuality. So I don't think there's really anyone that's clear of this journey, but to know, to become conscious of it, and then to take the steps to connect more deeply to your body, to your pleasure, it's really powerful.
Yes, I totally agree.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you want to share about igniting your feminine power or your journey with the practitioner training that you think people should know?
I think I just want to say in general, just remind people, I mean, kind of what you were just talking about, that it really is a journey. And when I look over, you know, it's been like 10 years for me now of going through this whole like reconnecting to my feminine energy in this conscious way. And you know, it's all about like those little baby steps and connecting into yourself in a way that feels good, and just like keeping moving forward with it. And like you said, that it's not just like, oh, we do this one time and it's done. And like, oh my gosh, if we're feeling not good again, then like there's something wrong. Like I didn't do it right. Like that's just the journey of it. And just to remember that, just to keep moving forward with it, and to really like, if I feel like, before I did the training with you, if I was listening to somebody just talk about like, oh, well, your power is in your pleasure and you just have to tap into your pleasure, I'd be like, okay, well, that's great. Like, how do I do that? Like, I have a busy life. I have to do this and this and this. Like, how am I supposed to tap into my pleasure? But just by letting that be in your awareness, and like knowing that that's like the design of our feminine power and our bodies, and just like allowing yourself to be curious and kind of just like asking yourself, like, what is it that I want? What is it that I desire? And like allowing yourself to kind of like move in that, and staying in your body and trusting the messages you get from your body. Like when I first heard you and my whole body was like, ding, listen to this lady, you know, just like really following those little threads that will lead us, you know, ever more down the path into expansion and contraction and rebirth and all of that beautiful stuff. So yeah, just trust the journey, go with it. And on those days when it seems just like you can't handle it, like that's okay. Give it a break. Try again the next day.
So well said. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy that you're here saying all these things. And I'm so excited to know that you are ignited and that you're out there and you're sharing this with the women that you support and that you, in your community, in your way. Like it's just, it makes me so happy. And I want to give a shout out to my mentor, Mama Gina, who always said, like, pleasure is a discipline, right? Pleasure is a discipline. Yeah. And that can be very easy to forget, because the last thing you want to do when you're feeling crappy is reach for pleasure. It's like, I just want to go right under my covers. And that's okay too. And that piece that you just said about like, just keep coming back to your body. What's the next thing? What's the next thing that feels good, right? So it doesn't have to be like this, like, oh my gosh, the gap between me and Sheila and Jenny, it's so far, I don't even know how I would even begin to get there. That's a very heady thought, right? That puts you up in your head. That brings up your fears. That brings up your anxieties. It brings up impatience, like all kinds of stuff. So the way to do that is just breathe, close your eyes, connect, ask your body, what do I need right now? What do I need right now? Like baby steps, just like you said, those baby steps are so important. So I want to invite anyone watching now or later. I'm hosting a complimentary webinar called The 5 Pillars of Ecstatic Birth. And it's really an introduction to this work that Jenny's been talking about. I'm going to put the link here in the post so that you can access that. And I also want to share the link to your community. Jenny, you want to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, I have this, I'm so grateful. I feel like I haven't built it. I've co-created this amazing, beautiful sisterhood community with amazing moms. We have a Facebook group together. It's for women who are pregnant and who have also, already have children. So it's really just it's a supportive, beautiful place where we talk about birth and mothering and how we can be ever more conscious and tapping into that sacred, pleasurable place of being women and mothers. So, and as part of that, I also host a free monthly sister circle where anybody can join, and we get together on Zoom, and we just support each other through our joys and our challenges, and it's been really amazing. So if anybody is feeling called, I will definitely give you the link. And yes, I would love to invite everyone to join the community. So it's called Sacred Birth Conscious Mama.
So important to be in circles with women who are like-minded, and you can support and love each other, and to keep you really steady on your journey. So I'm going to put the link for Jenny's community as well in this post. I just want to thank you so much for coming today, Jenny, and sharing your beauty, your wisdom, your feminine power with everyone. It's really inspiring. And I hope those of you watching have really enjoyed hearing Jenny's story, because you are such an inspiring, such a powerful woman, such a loving woman. It's really a gift to be with you. So thank you for coming today.
Oh, Sheila, thank you so much. I mean, I feel the exact same way about you, and you have just been such a beautiful expander for me and in my life, and just a catalyst for the most amazing and juicy growth ever. And I just
love that title, expander.
Yeah, you are. To expand, because I think that's actually really important. I know we're wrapping this up, but just like, we talk about in ecstatic birth, it's like this tricky line of like talking to women about what's possible to experience in birth without like feeling bad about your own experience. But we need to know what is possible. Like, we have to expand our subconscious and our beliefs into knowing that you can have an orgasmic birth. You can be a mother with 3 children and still feel amazing and pleasurable every day. You know what I mean? It's like, we need to have those examples that it is possible and that anyone can do it if you're willing to dive into it. So thank you so much for being that for me.
Sisters in expansion. Love you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you, Sheila.
Lots of love.